Welcome to this episode of Astro Hindsight, where we look at the historical events using Indian astrology as a tool. The big question is always, could history have been changed if we had the knowledge of events to come? Let's first look at the horoscope of Abraham Lincoln. He was born in the morning of February 12, 1809, in Hodgenville, Kentucky. This is the horoscope according to Indian astrology. There has been some talk recently about the similarities between President Lincoln and President-elect Barack Obama. They are both lawyers. Lincoln was the first U.S. president to be born outside the original 13 states in then the far western state of Kentucky, and Obama is the first U.S. elected president born outside the continental United States in the far western state of Hawaii. Both started their political career in the state of Illinois. Both served 8 years as state legislators and 1 year in Congress. Both have children under 10 years of age as they enter the White House. Both opposed wars started by their predecessors. Now let's compare the astrological similarities. If we look at both birth charts, we see some striking similarities. Both of them have Jupiter in the rising sign, or Lagna. Both have the lord of the rising sign in the rising sign itself. Both have Mars in the 8th house. Both have Rahu in the 8th house. Now let's focus on Lincoln and go back in time to 1865 in Washington, D.C. The Civil War was more or less over, and slavery had been abolished by law. Abraham Lincoln was sworn into his second term of office on March 4th, 1865, close to noon. This is the horoscope of the moment he was sworn in. As we know, the 8th house is the house of sudden transformations, extreme changes. In the inauguration chart, the violent Mars is the ruler of the 8th house and also aspects the 8th, which can indicate a sudden change due to violence. Mars is also in square to the Sun, which is symbolic of the highest office in the country, in this case, the President. Even more indicative is the eclipsing of the Saturn-Venus opposition by Rahu and Ketu. Venus, by virtue of ruling the 7th house, becomes a death indicator, a maraka, and Saturn, by the virtue of being in the 7th, also becomes a potential maraka. Mars is in the 2nd house, which is also a maraka house. 50 days after his inauguration, President Lincoln attended a play in the famous Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. This was April 14th, 1865. At 10:15 in the evening, his assassin sneaked up behind him and shot him in the back of the head. Lincoln died of his wounds at 7:22 the next morning. By the time of the assassination, Rahu and Ketu had transited over the Venus-Saturn opposition, and the Vimshottari Dasha, compressed to 4 years, shows the period of Rahu. Lincoln's birth chart at the time of the assassination was running the Vimshottari Dasha of Saturn and the subperiod of Rahu. Saturn rules the 12th house, which among other things indicates hidden enemies, and Rahu is in the 8th house of sudden and extreme change. At the time of the shooting, Saturn and Rahu are both transiting through the 8th house in exact conjunction with the explosive Mars. The transiting Mars is in the trine aspect to Rahu and a square aspect to the 8th ruler Venus. When we do a horoscope of the moment of the assassination, it comes as no surprise that Mars is found in the 8th house itself. In the next few videos, we will look at the horoscopes of other assassinated U.S. presidents, James Garfield, William McKinley, and John Kennedy, in an attempt to find a pattern, an astrological signature of presidential assassinations.